You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to the Successful Screenwriter Podcast, where we discuss anything and everything screenwriting. Here we interview successful screenwriters and filmmakers to find out just what it takes to make it in the industry. Just a heads up, this episode is brought to you by my book, The Guide for Every Screenwriter, which has been listed as one of the best screenwriting books of all time by the Book Authority. If you're looking for something that reveals the secrets of screenwriting in an easy to understand and engaging way, then this is the book for you. You can find The Guide for Every Screenwriter at thesuccessfulscreenwriter.com/books. Now, on to the show. All right, welcome to the show. We have on an awesome guest today. Jim Piddock is an actor, screenwriter. He was in Best in Show, and he actually co-wrote Mascots on a Netflix original with Christopher Guest. He has a book coming out called Caught with My Pants Down. Jim, thanks for coming on.
Caught with My Pants Down, yes. And Other Tales from a Life in Hollywood.
Oh, perfect. So can you give us just a little bit of the origin story of what brought you to writing your memoir?
Well, the origin was I did a talk for the Screen Actors Guild in Hollywood. They had a 200-seat theater, and they asked me to do this thing called Inside the Industry. So I was interviewed by an entertainment reporter from the Wall Street Journal, and I think we did an hour. He interviewed me, and I told stories, and I really enjoyed it, and the audience seemed to really enjoy it. And then we did Q&A afterwards. And I came away thinking, wow, that was kind of fun. And I don't do much live stuff anymore now because I'm just do film and TV,
right?
If I'm not writing. And I thought I could do this as a one-man show. It'd be kind of fun just to be me rather than playing a character and just chat about, what I've done and be irreverent and gossipy and name drop shamelessly for an hour and a half. And then I started writing the one-man show, and I soon realized it was becoming Nicholas Nickleby. It was about a 10-hour show, which I thought would stretch the patience of any theater audience. So then I thought, well, maybe I should write a book. And that coincided around that time. I had that thought with the pandemic and the lockdown.
Right.
So I had a perfect thing to just launch straight into. And I just ended up writing it in probably the first 4 or 5 months of the lockdown. I mean, I had a chunk of it already written before.
Yeah. Well, what I really appreciate about your book is you're so earnest in it. I mean, you give straight, flat accounts of what's going on in your life, and you've had such an amazing career from your Broadway stuff to even doing some television. I read a story that you were on Max Headroom, which I thought was such a great show, and it was canceled early.
That was one of my first television jobs. I was a villain on Max Headroom.
Yeah, that's incredible, and then just getting firsthand accounts of what you've been through. And one of them that really caught my eye was an audition you did for Larry David.
Oh, you mentioned the name. Spoiler alert. Yeah. It's we'll let people buy the book to find out the story, but it's not very flattering, is it?
I was shocked. That happened. Yeah,
it was not very flattering. I probably eviscerate 4 people in the book, I think. I haven't actually counted, but someone said, you really stick it to 4 people, 2 of whom are very well known. 1 is dead, so we can get away with that one. I actually had my lawyer say, someone's estate can't sue you for libel, for slander, rather. So, but mostly I'm very effusive and very kind, and it's a very lighthearted, as you know. The book is very lighthearted. I mean, there's a couple of chapters that are quite emotional. I think that I wanted to call it as it is. I thought there's no point in doing this if I'm not completely honest.
Right.
If I was starting out in my career, I wouldn't have written it because I have nothing to write about. But I would not. I'd have been like, oh God, I'll never work if I say that. I'll never work again.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit now. I mean, I really don't give a shit. And the people that I eviscerate, I have no desire to work with ever again as long as I live. or to even see, as long as I live. So I'm a much freer place now. I mean, I can say what I think. And so if nothing else, the book is honest to a fault. I mean, good, bad, and ugly. It's all in there.
No, I actually really appreciated that. And you even talk a little bit about, I don't know, the Hollywood game of like how to interact with other people, how to talk with other creatives in the industry. And I think at one point you spoke about how you're working with a writer and a director and how they were struggling with writing, and you're like, oh yeah, I only write a couple of pages. And then in the book you're like, I'm writing 3 scripts a week. I thought that was incredible.
Yeah. That was a friend of mine who was a director writer, and we were quite competitive when we were younger. And sadly, the story in the book is a kind of a tragic one. But yeah, we used to outdo each other all the time. He'd be like, yeah, I think I wrote about 15 pages today. And I was like, oh, is that all? I think I must have written at least all the first act and half the second. And by the time that ended, we were basically writing 3 screenplays a week in our own minds.
It's absolutely amazing.
So stupid.
Well, I mean, I think competition can drive creativity, though.
Oh, absolutely. He definitely had an amazing work ethic. This fellow called Duncan Gibbons, who was a film and music video director and a writer, and I think it was like running a marathon with someone who's a pacemaker. Wow. I had to keep up.
Yeah.
And sadly, he died very young, and the story in the book is about the extraordinary circumstances of that. But he taught me that. I mean, I probably picked that up from him, and I am ferocious when I write now. I mean, I have written screenplays in 2 weeks.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, to have that drive is incredibly important. And it's important to have someone like that in your life that pushes you. I know for me, when I'm struggling, I'll ask my wife, I'll say, do the thing. And then she'll say to me, I don't think you can do this. And that drives a competitiveness in me that makes me just, well, now I have to do it. So yeah, you have to have those people that push you. And it is a very touching story. You've had such an amazing career. And I was wondering if we could talk for a minute about Best in Show.
Mm-hmm.
So is it true that you've had to film all of your scenes in like a day?
Yeah. I was. It was my first Christopher Guest film, and Chris said we can do your and Fred's stuff in about 3 days. It was all shot in Vancouver, and most of it. And unfortunately, it was one of the few times in my life where I had a clash. I was writing and producing a TV series for the BBC with Mark Addy and and Lee Majors, of all people, was in it too, and Alex Jennings, and so I had an issue, but luckily I managed to negotiate with the BBC and with Chris and everybody. And what I did was I had the table read of episode 5 of the show on a Monday morning, gave my notes on the table read, went straight to the airport, flew from Heathrow to Vancouver, and arrived Monday nights and had dinner with Eugene and Chris and Fred Willard, who I'd met Eugene and Chris before. I knew Eugene socially. And they kind of went over what we were supposed to do. And then I was sent out of the room for a little bit after dinner so Fred could tell them what he planned to do. And they wanted me not to know some of the stuff he was going to do.
Oh,
so then
catch you by
I came
surprise.
back. Yeah, so I was, and then Chris said, well, by the way, we're not going to shoot Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We're going to start Wednesday because we're a bit behind. So I was kind of grateful. I was so tired and jet lagged. So I had that next day off, and then came to Tuesday night, and they said, "Oh, we're still running behind. We can't get to your stuff tomorrow." And then Wednesday night came, and they said, "We're really still behind. And so can we do it on Friday?" And that's when I had to remind them I actually had to leave on Thursday night to fly back to London to be there for the run through of the show, and then the taping of the show on Friday evening in London. So it was a nuts schedule, crazy. So we were left with the Thursday to shoot everything. So I really do believe it may be the most amount of film that's ended up in a film.
Wow.
That was shot in one day. Because normally a day you get maybe 30 seconds or a minute of film.
Right.
And we were basically in that the last 25, 30 minutes of the whole movie. So that's an enormous amount of footage. And we just shot from the start of the day to the end of the workday in an empty stadium with some extras behind us to make it look like, it was
Right.
full. And I guess they did some CGI or whatever. And there was no dogs, no nothing. We just had footage of what they'd shot already of the dog show. Or Chris saying, okay, now it's the hound group, so talk about the hound group. So, and we were just doing all this in an empty stadium. So it was an amazing ride. I mean, and I was so jet lagged. It was perfect because I could sort of play that kind of bemused, just reactive to Fred's lunacy, which was inspired. Absolutely inspired.
It's a great foil. Absolutely. Improv or scripted? Did you have both? Was it quick takes?
Pretty much all. It was pretty much all improv. Yeah, I mean,
really,
films are very, very, very detailed in their outlines, but the dialogue is all improvised. That's how Chris works. So when I wrote with him, I really learned the process. And it's about a 30-page outline, 25, 30 pages. And a script is normally, as 100 pages, for a comedy.
That's incredible.
And so it outlines all the map of the scenes and the showing, the movie entirely. But the actual dialogue, to get that documentary feel, Chris lets you improvise. There are suggestions of jokes, but in Fred and my case, in this case, we had no suggestions, no nothing. It's like they're talking about the dog show. That's it. And one is an ignorant, boorish guy, and the other is a dog expert. That's literally it. And Fred prepares studiously for improvisation. He's got jokes coming out of his ass. It's just he writes down loads and loads of things. He's always consulting, and then he goes, okay, and then it all comes out as if he's just thinking of it on the spot.
That's amazing.
And I had to react to that, and I knew that the straight man is very, very important in a comedy duo. I knew that, and I'd always been the clown. So it was a new thing for me to actually be the straight man. And I kind of liked it because the pressure was off not to be funny. I had to be knowledgeable about dogs, which I was because I'd read this really long, boring book called The American Kennel Club thingy. It's like a compendium. So I knew I had a lot of stuff at my fingertips, facts that I'd memorized. And so I threw a lot of that in. And then it was just literally me spontaneously reacting to whatever Fred did. And I thought the best way to do that is not to match it and try and be funny, but to start off being slightly surprised by his ignorance, and then a bit amused by his stuff, and then slightly annoyed, and then very annoyed. And then I think I finally end up, the last thing I say to him, he says some terrible joke or whatever, and I just turn to him and say, yes, I remember you said that last year. And it was just basically a knife straight down the back in his back. It was just to completely politely, yes, I remember you said that last year. And it just undercut his whole thing. But I think that helped. And actually my favorite thing in that movie, I know you're a screenwriting podcast, but I'm talking about acting.
This is great.
Talking about acting, but my favorite thing I think I may have ever done on film was that he said something so outrageous. I literally had no response to it. And I just turned and looked at him and then turned back again. And it to me, I still laugh out loud.
It is a great scene. I remember that scene.
It's just, I have nothing to say. And I just give him a look that says it all. I didn't need to come back with what the fuck are you talking about or whatever. It was, and I thought, oh my God, that's fantastic. I learned the economy of acting and how reacting often gets as many laughs as acting, and you need the clown. But I mean, Chris O'Dowd in Family Tree and Mascots, Chris is brilliant at being that. In Family Tree particularly, he had a lot of crazies around him, but his reactions were just as funny as the crazies, and that's very important. Very important.
Well, I'm glad you brought us to Family Tree. But before we get into that, I just want to say how impressed it is to see how you came up with a complete character arc for your character based on how he was accepting Fred Willard's.
Yes, I tried to get that in there. Yeah, I tried to, and then Chris did some masterful editing to make sure that was very clear. That arc.
Yeah,
because some of it was probably. I figured out I had to have some sort of, as it went, some sort of way to see the progression. Yeah.
So Family Tree was, I believe it was on HBO. I actually watched it when it came out. I was looking forward to it every episode because I thought the whole Chris O'Dowd journey was amazing and the characters around him were totally insane. And it didn't get renewed for a second season, or was it only supposed to be one season?
Yeah, well, I mean, with all those things, you do one, and we left a bit of a cliffhanger at the end of the last episode. It was an odd one, Family Tree. Chris and I had an absolute ball doing it, and it's a terrific show. It got an outstanding critical reception.
Yeah.
And it got some really, really good reviews and was voted as one of the best new shows, I think the best 5 new shows of the season or whatever. And it garnered an audience, not a massive one by HBO standards, but it was close to what Girls was getting. Was it Girls? That show? Yes, the Lena
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, the Lena Dunham show. It was close to those numbers, but it was a bit soft in a way. It was too gentle. It was more in the Ted Lasso mold of comedy than HBO's kind of a nasty, edgy. Well, not always nasty, but much more edgy and sort of
darker,
ugly. Yeah, uglier. And ours was really an uplifting, fun. It was definitely in the Ted Lasso. It was ahead of its time.
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, I would not. And
I think that was a wrong fit for HBO. But however, HBO and the BBC, who are the co-producers, both wanted to do a second season. They're both interested and sort of approached us about but it was deficit financed by NBC Universal International, and they owned it essentially, and they had to deficit finance it. And it was quite an expensive show, and they didn't want to do it. So they killed their own baby, which is shocking to me. But also, no one came to us and said, can you do a second season for X amount less per episode? And Chris and I would have easily figured out a way because we can do that. So it was a shame. I mean, there was a campaign online to save the show. A lot of fans of the show really bombarded HBO and everybody, but the purse strings aren't controlled by fans on social media.
So can you tell me, because you co-wrote Mascots, I actually got to rewatch it again on Netflix. I believe it's a Netflix original, and you co-wrote it with Christopher Guest. What's the origin of that? Where did this idea come from? And
the original idea was I wanted to do a documentary about soccer, football mascots in England. They're quite big and stupid. They're, as they are here in baseball and other sports.
Yeah.
And I love the whole idea, and I wanted to do a sort of documentary about mascots because I'd heard these wonderful stories of mascots having punch-ups and mascots being arrested and all these great stories of this lunacy with people grown men in stupid costumes or grown women. And I thought, who are these people and why are they doing it? And then I actually got to know a couple of mascots for the football team I support, Crystal Palace, Pete and Alice the Eagle. They were a married couple who played a male and a female eagle because the team's the Eagles. And I sort of talked to them. And then I found out, having been rather spoiled by television and film money writing fiction, I found out that making a documentary is not very lucrative. And the kind of budget I'd have had to work with, I was like, oh, God, I don't know if I can dedicate, X amount of my life to this for that money. So I said to Chris, Chris was kind of interested in producing the documentary and letting me get on with it because I'm sort of more comfortable in front of camera interviewing people. But I said, what about we do a fictitious version, in the vein of Best in Show, with these maniacs coming from all over the world, from different sports, and assembling for a World Mascots Championship. That's a fictitious thing we invented. And he said, yeah, I kind of like that. And then that's the germ of how it started. And we started writing, and it came, actually, it was quicker, I think, to write in some ways. No, it was about the same, actually, as Family Tree. But, we then knew which actors we wanted from his troupe to be in the American parts of it. And we knew also, because everyone's getting quite a bit older, we had to get some fresh blood in and some younger actors who could improvise. So we found some great people like Zach Woods and Sarah Baker and Brad Williams and Susan Yeagley, people like that who are all terrific. And we had to sort of find the right British people who could do it, which we did. So that's how we.
I thought Mascots was hilarious, and you did the same style of allowing a lot of improv.
Yes, it was. I mean, we wrote a very detailed outline and suggestions of jokes and where you need to go in the scene, and then we let it go.
So amazing.
But yeah, it was really fun. It was really fun.
Jim, is there anything that I haven't asked you that I should have?
No, I mean, we could talk about screenwriting and stuff for 2 or 3 hours, but people have got lives.
Do you have any final tips or anything for the writers out there?
Well, my writing career has been weird because it's been completely independent. I have, because I was sort of started as an actor and then writing came a bit later, I always did it in my spare time when I wasn't acting. And it kind of then took over a bit. And so probably now I spend 2/3 of my time writing at least, and a third acting. My tip is, I think you've got to write what you want. I mean, I was always, again, lucky. I wasn't so much a gun for hire. I've done assignments, and I've one situation we had a writer's room, and I hated it. And almost got into a fight with someone.
You were running the room, or you were?
Yeah, I was. I just hated the whole idea of writing by committee. So I've always written things I wanted to write, rather than someone coming to me with a half-baked idea and saying, "Can you make this work?" or "Can you do this?" And rewrites I've done a couple of, but mostly with rewrites, I was given something and I go, "You know what? Make it. It's great." Or, "This is a pile of shit. Don't make it. It's rubbish. I can't save it." Very rare did I get a script where I go, "Oh yeah, this is really nice, and I think I can help this." So I had a very unconventional. I'm lucky. It's been very lucrative, but I always wrote what I wanted to write. So whether it was successful or not, or whether it turned out the way I wanted it to, which often it doesn't, because it's the minute you turn in your first draft, you're compromising from that minute onwards. And it just gets more and more compromised all the way down the line. And if you're lucky, something comes out that's close to what you intended. So I would say just be true to write about what you want to write. I mean, some people don't, and they gauge the marketplace and they write to order and they're guns for hire. And that's fine. That's a very lucrative way of making a living anyway. But for me, I think what can be soul destroying is if you become part of the factory machinery, as opposed to, and then it's someone else. The script gets passed on to someone else, and then they do a rewrite. And in the studio film thing, it's a total factory. And television is kind of different. So it's you have much more control. But I would say, for satisfaction levels, write what you want, and then think about how it could sell and make it the most saleable it can be. But some of the things that I have sold and had made, were the least, saleable. And people said, I remember an agent saying one script, he said, "I love this, but it'll never get made in a million years." And 2 years later, it got made. So you never know.
Which one was that?
It's called A Different Loyalty. It was about Kim Philby, the spy. And when he defected, his wife went against all advice to join him in Russia and live with him. And it was the story of that. It's
brilliant.
About people putting love above everything else, and paying a massive price for it.
So find something you're passionate about, write that, and then make sure it's sellable, and then figure out a way to get that thing produced.
I think that's the order, yes, rather than go, "Oh, what's sellable?" I've done that once, and I didn't want to write it. I did that with Tooth Fairy. I went, "I've got a great idea."
With Dwayne Johnson?
Dwayne Johnson. It's a great idea. This is a huge commercial idea. I can see the poster. It's a big guy in a tutu or with wings or whatever. I get it. And I wrote the outline and the treatment, and I said to the producer, Jason Blum, "I was just one little hitch here. I don't want to write it. I want to produce it with you," and we did. But there are people that can write this. I've done family movies. I want to write something, another genre right now. I want to write something else. So let's find people that can knock this out of the ballpark. And we found Lal Gantz and Babalu Mandel, who are, the deans of comedy writing.
Yeah. And it's a funny movie.
It's fun. Yeah, it's very sweet. Yeah. It's like an old Disney movie. I mean, it's like an old Disney movie. It's Stephen Merchant. I remember coming out of the premiere and Steve Merchant saying to me, "You'd have to be pretty hard-hearted not to like this movie."
Yeah.
It's a feel-good, great for kids. And that was the one instance where I went. I was reverse engineering and going, "This is a studio movie, a big picture."
Yeah. That sounds like finding your truth is exceptionally important for writing. Yeah, absolutely. Whenever I come onto a project, I always try and find something that resonates within me about it, whether it's a character or theme or story. So I totally get it. Hey, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter by using my handle @ScreenwriterPod. And if you liked the show, please support it by subscribing and sharing the episode on your social media.